You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. So it begins again. Welcome back to the CreepGeeks Podcast. I'm Greg.
I'm Omi.
And it begins again. This is season 8, episode 316.
Electric rocks make oxygen, Mercury makes diamonds, out-of-place artifacts, and UFO hotspots.
Yes. All right, so anyway, welcome back. If this is your very first time listening to the podcast, we're glad you're here. If you are a repeat offender, welcome. It's good to see you.
Yeah.
So, what is the CreepGeeks Podcast all about? Well, you go ahead and tell everybody.
Well, we broadcast paranormal news and share our strange experiences from our underground bunker in the mountains of western North Carolina.
That is correct. Yes. So we do have a lot of stuff we'd like to talk about in a particular podcast episode. That is episode 316, season 8. And, well, I would just like to say that sitting here at the old podcast desk of excellence, I found the tape measure that I've been looking for. I was just thinking about it last night when I couldn't find it, right? Yeah. I was doing a live stream about knives and stuff, and I couldn't figure out how long something was, so I'm like, I'm going to use a measuring tape. I have like 8. Can't find not a one, and they all have like names on them and stuff, so I realized like this one I stole from my dad, you know, just can't find them. Hiding in plain sight.
My work, we've pretty much resorted to just leaving the office tape measure on my
communal
desk.
Tape measure. There you go.
Just leave it on my desk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's the sort of the theme of this podcast is hidden in plain sight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Not really, but it might tie in, right? So anyway, if you'd like to support the podcast, there's a couple different ways you could do it. We have all sorts of social media places.
Okay.
And that you can kind of check out. So you can pick your flavor. If you like little Facebook, we got that. If you want Instagram, we got that. If you want Patreon, we got that. What else we got? We got YouTubes and TikTok. And the trick is just search for CreepGeeks and you'll find us. Yeah. If you want to buy some stuff off Amazon and use the link that we have in our show notes, you could do that. Amazon's like, oh, we give you a couple % here. There you go. It doesn't change your price at all. And they act like they're doing you a favor with that, but we all know what the deal is with Amazon. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they charge too much, and now they play commercials during Prime, and I don't like it.
I'm glad we're doing this now because I would have done a whole rant about Prime Day.
Did you eat beforehand?
No, I did not.
Yeah, so, Prime Day.
Yeah.
It's junk. Speaking of junk, so SpaceX has been blowing, just trying to bomb, I guess, western North Carolina. We've talked about it in the past 2 podcasts where the trunk of the Falcon X capsule comes off and burns up in pieces, and they're like, oh, it's cool. I mean, it's not a big chunk, right?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out they're so good at it that NASA is basically offering them $843 million to destroy the International Space Station when it comes time to have the International Space Station be destroyed.
Yeah.
So they want SpaceX to come up with a plan so they can destroy it.
All right.
I mean, it kind of makes sense. They're like the only game in town, that can bomb the planet and be all right with it. So they're like, you know what? Hey, why guys, you're up there. Why don't you go ahead and destroy the space station? Well, it kind of makes sense because the space station's kind of large. So if you look at the International Space Station and figure out how big that thing is, it's about the size of a football field, and it's supposed to end its service life in 2030.
Yeah.
It's going to smash into our atmosphere at a speed of more than 17,000 miles per hour.
Oh.
And if you don't like freedom units, that's 27,500 kilometers per hour.
Okay.
Well, it's something that, when I've watched Top Gear quite a bit, and they're like, oh, it goes 130, whatever. It's like, do they really mean miles per hour, or are they saying kilometers? Because I'm not impressed when you're like, oh, yeah, it goes 100 kilometers an hour. It's like, that's like 40 miles an hour in American. We do that all the time. Just going to the mailbox. 175 kilometers per hour. So, anyway, so the floating laboratory parts were first launched in 1998. Mm-hmm. So if you think about it, they've done like 3,300 experiments, but the fact that they'll be up there for like 30, almost 32 years, that's pretty impressive for you know, space station. I'm sure things probably falling apart and smells like weird cheese up in there because everything's recycled. And they said that if you go to the space station and come back, you have a sort of a scent about you because they don't really take showers. They're just doing little wipes. Okay. Some of those people have been up there like a year just using wipes. You know, like when we go camping sometimes in the old camper van and you're like, well, let's just hit the old adult non-scented baby wipes, kind of clean up.
Yeah.
So you don't look like a savage that's been living in a van in the woods, right, down by the river. Can you imagine being up there a year?
No.
Breathing recycled breath.
No.
And other noxious emissions. No. Pretty awful, right? So anyway, SpaceX is going to try to get that contract, $830 million, to destroy the International Space Station. What they're going to do is they're just going to put it in orbit and just let it go, just like they do the little chunks of the trunk on the bottom of the capsule. Hit Western North Carolina twice. They're going to do it again. You watch. So pick somewhere else. Like pick another state like Tennessee or something.
And I don't know enough, but I am curious. Like, if large pieces break off, I mean, I'm assuming 90% of a large piece would burn up in our atmosphere on reentry. But still, at what point in size do these things actually cause like significant damage?
Well, I would hope that they're full of smart people working on this problem to know, you know what? Yeah, that chunk's acceptable.
Huh.
But, you know, hey, as always, it's like making lemonade with instant mix. You stir the crap out of it, and you still wind up with little chunks of weird stuff that just didn't seem to make it.
Yeah.
So it's entirely possible. It's possible this space station's going to take something out. Who knows, man?
Yeah.
I mean, they're obviously not going to send down. I mean, how are they going to? It's as big as a football field with the solar panels and all that stuff. So I don't know how they're going to disassemble that thing. So who knows, man? We'll see. Good old space junk. But, you know, this might open up a market.
Yeah.
If they can take this thing and take care of it, and they come up with a sort of a operating plan and a set of instructions and stuff on how to do it, I mean, I could see somebody just making that their business. Put capsule in space and just collect space junk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Space junk space. Just like collecting stuff. Because I guess if you grab whatever it is, you can salvage it. So maybe it'll open up a whole salvage thing.
Do salvage rules of the sea also apply in space?
Well, from what I understand, a lot of maritime rules we're extending the maritime rules into space.
Okay.
So if it's derelict and not claimed or whatever, I think they might be able to take it. I'm sure some things they probably won't be able to do, but I don't know. It'd be interesting to see because there's a lot of space trash up there and they need to take care of it.
Yeah.
You know, which is probably what's protecting us from anything that might whiz by and take a look at our planet. It's like, well, that's a little garbage planet. Little trash planet over there, right? So, yeah. I mean, because there's enough space junk where the International Space Station crew, you know, they kind of had to, like these 9 astronauts had to take shelter because of a big old chunk of junk flying by.
Yeah, but you did just make me think of, you know, why intelligent life hasn't passed by here. Kind of like when we drive by a distressed neighborhood. I
like how you're like a distressed neighborhood. Yeah, stuff like whizzing around. Hey, you know what? That might be helpful to us. You know what I mean? Maybe that's why we haven't been visited and subject to alien rule.
Because we don't, you know.
Because they're like, that's just too garbage. That's just a garbage
follow
town.
HOA Come on down to garbage policy.
Town. Yeah. Come on down to Garbage Town. Welcome, planet Earth. Yep.
Gosh.
So that's kind of a catch-up of what we talked about in our last podcast where we've mentioned the past 2 times SpaceX has been bombing Western North Carolina with junk. Mm-hmm. Now they're going to get paid to take care of some junk. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, guys, since you're so good at it.
It's not a problem. It's a feature.
Yeah. And we'll slip you a couple extra bucks if you can get Western North Carolina again, right? If somebody doesn't like us. What if it come down to that? What if some astroscientist nerd, right,
it's just holding a big grudge.
It's like with a slide rule calculator, right? And a little from back in the olden days, like, I went to Asheville, North Carolina one time, and I did not like it. Guess what? Space junk for you. You know, just up there scheming or whatever. That's possible. We don't really know the inner workings of that kind of thing because we're not rocket surgeons, right? Mm-hmm. So, all right. So anyway, that's enough of that trash. Speaking of trash, I figured something out.
What'd you figure out?
Do you know when coal miners and stuff, or somebody's excavating something and they find like a something that doesn't belong, like a Nokia cell phone, it looks like it's 75,000 years old or whatever, and they date it, and they're like, what is that? And
You mean like out-of-place artifacts?
Well, that's you just read what I put in the podcast, but that's what I'm talking about.
That's what it is.
You didn't know what it was.
Yes, I do. There's a that,
you do now.
That battery in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, but I didn't know it was called out-of-place artifacts.
Yeah.
All right.
The full name is out-of-place, out-of-time artifacts.
Ooh, that's not what it says here on the internet.
Okay. Well, there's several pages on the internet, just not one that has all the information.
Somebody's a little spicy, ladies and gentlemen. What? I say that because we're going to have dinner. And what's dinner tonight?
Tiki masala.
Which is relatively spicy with the turmeric. I know you don't think so, but not all of us are made to the turmeric, man. Saffron.
It's good for you.
Yeah, it's good. It's also terrible in my stomach. For whatever reason, it seems to affect me adversely. Where that if I was on the International Space Station, I would have problems.
If he dies. That's Rocky meme.
That is not funny at all. I've been successfully surviving.
Okay.
For 54 years and trying to put a jinx on it. Well, speaking of out-of-place
sometime this week.
Yes, please. I like potatoes. And you and your damn rice. Okay, so according to ancient origins, there's like 17 out-of-place artifacts that are basically to suggest that there's advanced ancient civilizations, right? Mm-hmm. And so, two things. I didn't know it was called out-of-place artifacts. I thought it was called something else. So I'm like, all right, that's pretty cool. But I didn't realize that somebody was keeping track like a list, The number 17, everybody's heard about. And we're not going to do all 17 of them, but we're going to do a bunch of them. Is when they come across like 2,000-year-old batteries, sometimes referred to as like Baghdad batteries because found in Baghdad. Like, okay, well, that's pretty. I mean, if they could do that with a potato in class, I mean, having a battery is probably not too crazy. But it goes to the idea that ancient civilizations just weren't as technologically advanced or knew the stuff that we know. And it's the same sort of thing that when you look at the youngsters these days growing up, they just know that their parents are more stupid than they are. We do the same thing looking back at ancient civilizations. Yeah. They didn't know anything. They're stupid. Maybe not quite so much, right?
Yeah.
Another one is an ancient Egyptian light bulb, and they're doing this based off of seeing a hieroglyphic that looks like it might be a light bulb. And since we're assuming that looks like a light bulb, or what we think would be a light bulb, that's what it is. It could be something completely different.
Yeah.
I was like, well, it doesn't really count so much. But then the Great Wall of Texas I thought was pretty interesting. So in 1852, it's, I guess, Rockwell County now.
Yeah.
Farmers were digging a well, and they discovered what looks to be an ancient rock wall. And it's supposed to be around 200,000 to 400,000 years old. And some say it's just a natural formation, but others are like, no, man, that's clearly man-made.
Yeah, this one's highly debated because, so I'm a big rock nerd, so I follow, geologists and rock hounds all over, but a lot in Texas and New Mexico. And you'll have some geologists going, no, this is due to the unique rock makeup of the area. It does look like shelves or bricks. And then you have other people who are like, no, because there's a definitive pattern. And then you have some geologists saying, well, that's what's wonderful and beautiful about science is patterns.
Yeah.
So it goes back and forth on this. And I'm undecided, especially with some of the original accounts when the farmers were digging up these wells or digging certain pasture areas. And they were like, it's the same wall. And it's a whole farm away.
Yeah.
So this one I'm on the fence about. I'm interested in it, though. So.
Well, Dr. John Geisman at the University of Texas in Dallas, right?
Yeah.
He tested the rocks as part of a History Channel documentary, and he found that they were all magnetized the same way, suggesting they were formed where they are and were not moved to that site from elsewhere. But some remain unconvinced. And I think there's something about if an atomic bomb goes off, it can cause things to become magnetized. And so there is a theory that there was advanced civilization, but, atomic war took over and erased it.
And that leads into the next one.
Yeah.
So, I've never heard of this one, and it just kind of scares me a little bit, but it's a 1.8 billion year old nuclear reactor, allegedly.
Yeah.
In 1972, a French factory imported uranium ore from Oklo in Africa's Gabon Republic.
Yeah.
The uranium had already been extracted. They found the site of origin to have apparently functioned as a large-scale nuclear reactor that came into being 1.8 billion years ago and was in operation for some 500,000 years. Dr. Glenn T. Seaborg, former head of the United States Atomic Energy Commission and Nobel Prize winner for his work in the synthesis of heavy elements, explained why he believes it wasn't a natural phenomenon and thus must be a man-made nuclear reactor. For uranium to burn in a reaction, very precise conditions are needed.
Yeah, water's got to be really pure. And then you have U-235 materials. Basically, you have to have that for fission to actually occur.
Yeah. That one just unsettles me.
I mean, look.
You know?
In my life, I've thought about it off and on a lot. We're not the first go-around. I don't care what anybody says. There's no way. We're not the first wave of humans or whatever to be on this planet.
Yeah.
There's just too many knick-knack things that don't work. And then an easy explanation is, well, it's because we're all part of a simulation. So which is more likely? We're all part of a computed simulation, or we just keep getting wiped out and starting over again? I think it's more likely we just get wiped out and start over again. We're not that smart as a race to begin with, right?
Yeah.
But no, a giant quantum computer or whatever. It just keeps resetting a simulation over. For what? What's the purpose? And if you look at the Matrix, like, well, we're going to take him, we're going to harness all the bioelectrical energy out of humans. Why not just build a 1.8 billion year old reactor? You don't even need to worry about it.
Yeah.
So whatever. I don't think it's our first go around.
Okay.
So how about that?
Sure.
So I thought that was kind of neat with that one. And then there's a seafaring map that basically shows that map makers figured out that Antarctica was there before it was covered in ice. So they drew this map, and it shows terrestrial features that you wouldn't be able to see if it's covered with, 2.5 miles of ice, right?
Yeah.
So, it was created by a Turkish admiral and cartographer, Piri Reis, in 1513, but it was sourced from various earlier maps, and it's thought by some to depict Antarctica as it was in a very remote age before it was covered in ice. And this goes back to Land of Mu and Lemire.
Yeah.
Is it Lemire? Yeah.
Lemuria.
Yeah, Lemuria and Mu as being these continents that had basically advanced life on there, I guess, like civilizations beforehand, and then disappeared or wiped out. So you can really feed into the whole flat earth theory and the Arctic ice wall and all that. When you say, well, wait a minute, we have maps. They couldn't have seen it, but they've seen it,
Yeah.
So another one is 150,000-year-old pipes.
Okay.
So some caves. Now, these are probably just created by the graboids from Tremors.
Oh,
So, and then you've got the Antikythera mechanism, which is an astral sort of calculator, astral, not photography, but it's for navigation, right? It's used to calculate the positions of the sun, the moon, and the planets, and dates so that they can navigate correctly. And it's been on like Ancient Mysteries, a bunch of this thing. It looks like a wheel. It's in a square, and you're like, what is it? We don't know. That kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But I like some of the more common ones, like a drill bit found in coal.
That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jonathan Buchanan Esquire presented a mysterious object to a meeting of the Society of Antiquaries, right, in Scotland in 1852. A drill bit had been found encapsulated in coal, about 22 inches thick. It was buried in like a bed of clay and mixed with boulders, and about 7 feet thick. And so the Earth's coal is said to form hundreds of millions of years ago, and the society decided that the instrument was of a modern level of advancement, but it concluded that the iron instrument might have been part of a borer broken.
Huh.
So saying, it's a drill bit that was broken when they were trying to bore it out, right?
Yeah.
When they were doing a search for coal. But Buchanan's detailed report did not include any signs that the surrounding coal had been disturbed. In other words, if you're going to drill a hole and break a bit, the hole you drilled all the way to the point where the bit broke, you should have evidence of that, and there is none. So he's like, well, how did it get there? So then you've got some 2.8 billion year old spheres.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Kiekerstorp spheres. I mean, those are interesting, but, what's interesting about these spheres is not that they're spheres, it's that they have, like, lines around them.
Yeah.
Because we've seen plenty of spheres in nature, but these seem to be a little bit more ornate. And then let's see if we can find a cool one. We're skipping all the dumb stuff. Like 100 billion year old hammer. Now, this one's pretty interesting, though. It is a hammer that was found encased in stone, and it looks like kind of like a regular hammer, like a rock hammer, right? And it's supposed to be 100 million years old.
Okay.
And that one's been on TV quite a bit, so you probably might have seen that one.
Yeah.
3 million year old bridge.
I've heard about this.
Or a million year old bridge.
Yeah.
Called Adam's Bridge, also known as Rama's Bridge. It's between India and Sri Lanka. And according to ancient Indian legend, King Rama, he built a bridge between India and Sri Lanka more than 1 million years ago. And what appears to be remnants of such a bridge have been seen from satellite images. Yeah. But many people say it's a natural formation. Well, I mean, if you build a bridge up and you use like pilings and stuff like that, it can, or cement or whatever, it could look sort of a natural thing.
Yeah, some of these sunken things tend to end up on these lists, like the prehistoric wall near the Bahamas. I remember watching like a documentary on this when I was like a kid or something.
I like how you skip over the 500,000 year old spark plug.
Yeah.
That one's cool. They found what appeared to be a spark plug encased in a geode. So the geologist was never named, and the current whereabouts of the artifact are unknown. But critics of the claim only have x-rays, right, and an artist's sketch of the artifact to analyze. And so they think that it was a modern spark plug encased in a quick-forming concretion rather than an actual geode. So they're like, no, it could be fake. That's kind of
It is. I just looked it up.
Oh, you just looked it up so you know.
It's called the Koso artifact. The Koso artifact is an object falsely claimed by its discoverers to be a spark plug encased in a geode. Discovered on February 13th, 1961 by Wallace Lane, Virginia Maxey, and Mike Mikesell while they were prospecting for geodes near the town of Olancha, California. It has long been claimed to be an example of an out-of-place artifact. The artifact has been identified as a 1920s era champion spark plug encased in concretion.
It's probably shot out of a 1984 Ford Bronco.
So the concretion process can actually mimic what most people think geodes are, which is why it's got that, that casing and those layers that when you crack open a geode and look at the sides.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
So the spark plug was probably exposed to some sort of mineral or energy source that helped create or accelerate that concretion.
Well, it's a well-known fact that an 82 to 84 Bronco will shoot a spark plug out of that 351 Windsor. No problem. Or actually, I'm sorry, 351 Cleveland. That harkens back to an episode we did when we had our buddy John Beals on.
Yeah.
Where we talked about the Baconator and the Voodoo doll.
Yeah.
And how we had all the problems with that Bronco, including, shooting a spark plug out into the firewall or into the fender well of the van. Of the Bronco. We called it Baconator because it was maroon in color, had tan stripes and a tan roof, and it looked like a piece of bacon.
Yeah.
So, not like real bacon, but like bacon like you give your dog. Like the fake bacon strips. That's what it looked like. So instead of calling it the Baconator, we called it the Baconator. Because at the time, Wendy's Baconators were fantastic hamburgers.
They were.
So speaking of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, do you think it's really fallen over?
I'm afraid that it might be.
Well, no fears.
Okay.
So at one time, the idea was floated that it was put up and then it was designed to be that way. So, but that's not really the case. So you've got millions of tourists that go to see the Leaning Tower of Pisa every year, right? And they look at it and it looks like it's going to fall over. It's been that way for centuries. But the question is, how much longer will this iconic Italian attraction stand?
Yeah.
So if you kind of have to look at the structural integrity of this thing to see how it's going to play out and how long it's actually going to be there. So they started building this bell tower, right?
Yeah.
Which is what the Leaning Tower of Pisa kind of is, and they built it in Cathedral Square and Plaza de Duomo in 1173. And that started like 2 centuries of on and off building for this thing, and it's been interrupted by wars and all sorts of stuff like that. But even from the first few floors, builders of the towers noticed that it had the beginnings of a southward lean. So, and what they think is that the malleable soil underneath has been softened by high water, and that's what's causing it sort of lean, right? So instead of scrapping the idea of the tower, starting over again, the builders have just been sort of fixing it as they go along. So they built each floor at an angle to try to correct the tilt. So as they were building this thing, they're building the floors at an angle so that it doesn't tilt anymore, so to try to correct it, right?
Yeah.
And when they did that, it actually caused the Leaning Tower of Pisa to lean even more. And it sort of resulted in almost kind of a slight banana shape. So that didn't quite work out right. So when this thing was finished in 1370, the tower tilted at 1.6 degrees. And it was just basically a hollow structure. So it's like a hollow cylinder, right?
Yeah.
8 stories tall, about 196 feet or 60 meters in the air. It's basically a masonry skeleton, and it's composed of rock fragments and mortar, which was coated in marble and columns and has vaults in it, right? And so as the slant gradually grew into 5.5 degrees, the Italian government took action to protect the landmark. So in 1990, it appointed a committee of experts to mitigate the lean. But they also wanted to fix it, but not fix it, because it's a tourist attraction. They don't want to like make it stand up straight, because who wants to go see the Tower of Pisa, you know?
Yeah.
Right? Because then you couldn't do the photograph where you hold your hands up and act like a
Perspective photo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the perspective photos where it's just obviously wrong, you know? We have one of you at the Goddard Space Center with their hand over the rockets, like not even close. Like, that's good, keep going, right? Okay, so the committee made some changes, and they put 600 tons of lead to the base of the tower's north side in 1993. Remember, it's got a southward lean.
Yeah.
So they put some on the north side, hoping it would sort of compensate for the sinking on the south side. But it didn't stop the rate of tilt. So even after they added an extra 300 tons, now we're looking at like almost 1,000 tons of lead, and added some ground tankers to it. It still had to lean, right?
Yeah.
So they thought, you know what, if we do some under excavation, which is basically using long tubes to move all the foundation dirt out of the way, then they could, maybe sort of straighten it up a little bit, and then possibly put like cement or something like that underneath it to sort of bolster it so it won't completely lean.
Yeah.
But as they were moving the soil, the actual structure itself started to kind of rotate northward. And when they did that, it decreased the tower's lean by 10%, leaving it at a 5-degree slant. And so they said that when they did that, they turned back the tower clock by 200 years.
Okay, then.
Yeah. This is only a temporary fix, and it's impossible to estimate how much longer the tower is going to stand. But within the next 300 years, it could kind of tilt back to its 5.5 degree lean from 1990. 90. So, but in the meantime, they say it's safe for a few reasons, right?
Yeah.
And so the long interruptions in construction has given the time necessary for some of the malleable soil to settle, to make it a little bit harder, so it's become more packed. And the tower's base is thicker than the columns in the upper half, so that makes it more stable. And so they've been kind of looking at this for a long time, right? And so it's actually fared pretty well during earthquakes, obviously.
Yeah, that's
something
so
like, how does that happen? Yeah. And so, by the time they're done with this whole thing, if they don't do any more physical interventions, then in a couple hundred years, they'll have to worry about it, right?
Yeah.
But it's monitored by, instruments, and it's constantly monitoring and measuring factors like the tilt and water table and all of that stuff. So the question is, if you ever seen the Leaning Tower of Pisa, how close they let you get to it? Because I think at one time you could go up in it. They didn't even care. It was like, go on up there, kind of mess around. So, yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting, because I had no idea that I knew that they had put stuff at the bottom and tried to stop it from doing, but we're talking like 1,000 tons of lead. Probably don't want to eat that.
No. Probably don't want to grow any vegetables next to it either.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it is Italy, and if you think about it, it's kind of like the Fiat, right? Everybody likes that car, but there's always something going on with the Fiat.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say what the word fiat actually means because if it's funny in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but it might be slightly inappropriate now. It's like fix it again. Whatever. So what do you think about that?
Okay.
So there you go.
I am worried. I do think it.
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, people are pretty close to it. They're not that worried. So they're going to worry about it in 200 years.
I remember it was like a few years ago, they were actually worried that some of the Parthenons and stuff were actually starting to crumble. So
They're like a couple thousand years old.
Yeah.
That's lasted a pretty long time. Yeah. Kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So we do have some other news. And I thought this was worth talking about because you are a rock nerd, and this has rocks in the title, so I'm like, let me throw this in here. But it is pretty interesting because scientists are shocked by electric rocks producing oxygen in the deep ocean. Because, how can rocks create oxygen? What do you think about that?
I probably should have read this article.
Well, it's pretty sciencey.
Yeah.
And they start out with precious life-sustaining oxygen is being produced in a place that nobody expected.
But we do know.
But you won't be able to breathe it in.
That above ground, like, we have phenomenon like swamp gas and mountain
Okay, do you want to know the real reason why I put this in here?
That. Why?
You bought pop rocks.
Oh, so
these are nature's pop rocks. Isn't that clever? Leave me alone to write a podcast episode.
I don't know.
This is at 13,000 feet.
Yeah.
So in the Pacific Ocean, it's pretty deep. Titanic is at 12,500 feet.
Oh.
So we're talking way down there.
Yeah.
And it's not the presence of oxygen that's surprising, as the element is one of the two components of water. So the element is actually being manufactured by metallic minerals. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And they basically used to think that oxygen was just created by photosynthetic organisms, and it could be a byproduct of like decay and that sort of thing that happens with these photosynthetic organisms. But you're too far down to have sunlight at 13,500 feet. So for aerobic life to begin on the planet, there had to be oxygen and other stuff, right?
Nitrogen.
To create this photosynthetic life, right? Or these photosynthetic organisms. But what they're saying now, Albert Sweetman, or Sweetman, as he's known to all his friends, right? He's a researcher in the Scottish Association for Marine Science, and he basically said, but now we know that there is oxygen produced in the deep sea where there's no light. So I think, therefore, we need to revisit questions like, where could aerobic life have begun?
I'm reading about the process.
Yeah, it's pretty nifty.
Basically, polymetallic nodules contained elements including cobalt, nickel, copper, lithium, and manganese, which are all critical components of batteries. Giger had previously found that combining rust with salt water generates electricity, and hypothesized that the nodules could produce enough electricity to produce oxygen, a process called seawater electrolysis. And it's funny because we've heard of seawater electrolysis before as a way to either clean the oceans, find gold, generate electricity if we had like large-scale systems.
Yes, and actually will cause your ships to rust to pieces.
Yeah.
That's why they put like zinc anodes.
Yeah.
On the bottom of boats and rudders and stuff.
Yeah. So these natural geobatteries are what's causing, the ocean's dark oxygen production. So
I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So, how does this affect global warming?
So, if you have
You're just guessing. It was a rhetorical question because think about it. If you've got these natural things in the ocean creating oxygen, which we all need to survive.
Mm-hmm. Not only are these creating oxygen, but the process in which they're doing so would generate higher temperatures.
Because several large-scale mining companies now aim to extract these precious elements from the seafloor. We need to rethink how to mine these things.
Yeah.
So that we don't deplete the oxygen source for deep sea life. So they're going to go down and get some.
I mean, cobalt and manganese, those are...
Well, it also explains how, animals can live down there.
Yeah.
If you're cruising past these batteries, they're just making oxygen. It's like, cruising past a fizzy Alka-Seltzer thing. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I got air, I can breathe, or my body can suck in the oxygen that I need in order to survive, because I am an aerobic organism in an anaerobic world.
Okay.
Yep. And so one of the comments, electric oxygen rock is my favorite subgenre. So, and then the mining corporations won't give a flying fandango about depleting O2 for the sea creatures. And when I read that comment the first time, the second time I read it in Dude's voice from the vampire show season. Can't think of his name.
Laszlo?
Yeah, no, not Laszlo. The other guy. Look it up. As soon as you're like, oh, him, it's going to make complete sense. It won't make sense to anybody listening to the podcast, but it'll make sense to you.
Not Nandor, but Colin Robinson.
No. Is it Laszlo? No, hold on. What's his face? Is that Laszlo?
Matt Berry is
Matt
Laszlo.
Berry. Yeah, him. He's Laszlo?
Yeah, Matt Berry's Laszlo. And then Kai Van Novak, he's Nandor.
Oh, yeah. Well, who is he? He played like Dakota Slim or whatever, and he's like that dude.
You mean Jackie Daytona?
Yeah.
That's Matt Berry.
I know that's Matt Berry. I didn't know that was his name, Jackie Daytona.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway. His name was really Laszlo?
Yeah. Laszlo Craven something. Gosh.
Craven Sweets?
Sure.
All right.
I'm just going to say yes.
See, now I don't know who I thought was Laszlo. Because you got Laszlo, Nando, Colin Robinson.
Nandor the Relentless.
Yeah, well. Okay, well, that was funny, but not as funny as it should have been, I guess. I'll do next time I'll eat dinner before we do this podcast, and it'll make more sense. Because right now I'm just like Greg the Befuddled, right? So let's jump into one thing here. Since we were talking about rocks that make oxygen, which is cool and all, right? What's even more important than that, Mercury makes diamonds.
The planet. Not,
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, what other Mercury would it be? Freddie Mercury?
No.
Regular Mercury?
Yes.
Mercury the planet, 11 miles thick. They think these diamond layers is.
Cravensworth.
Who? I don't know.
Leslie Laszlo Cravensworth.
Leslie Laszlo Cravingsworth.
Yeah. That's Matt Berry's character.
Cravingsworth. A silly name. I like that guy, Sweet Man. He goes, I'm John Sweetman. My friends call me Sweet Man, right?
Ugh.
Okay, so according to this article I found from a reputable news source called the__bite, right? BYTE. Mercury has an 11-mile layer thick of diamonds. 11-mile layer
Deep.
thick
Yeah.
of diamonds. It's an unfathomable wealth. Actually, you bring 11 miles worth of diamonds from this planet back to Earth, and diamonds will have no worth.
They already have no worth.
Yeah, they're just rocks.
It's
It's
just-
all about rocks. But
It's just a giant conspiracy.
yeah.
That's-
So is sandpaper.
Sandpaper during World War I and World War II is actually made from garnets, and most of those garnets were mined in New Mexico.
Sure, that's what they say.
The Baca mine helps support the
And
World
those
War II war
junky
effort.
industrial diamonds serve a purpose too.
They're repurposed every day for computers and stuff like that.
And they're also used in sanding and
Yeah.
polishing things. So, well, okay, so if that be the case, then Mercury is going to be a treasure planet. So an excess of carbon on the planet means that Mercury is starkly drab and gray on the surface. However, new research suggests that underneath, the tiny world harbors a glittering interior fit to be the jewel in our crown of our own solar system.
Whatever.
Yeah, so they've done a new study, and they basically, and this is in the journal Nature Communications, right? Researchers think that Mercury has a layer of diamond up to 11 miles thick beneath the planet. It's like a big geode beneath the planet's rocky innards.
Okay.
And it's a spectacular theory, and it dazzles the mind, but it could help explain some of Mercury's more puzzling sort of attributes, right? And, high carbon content that might have significant implications is one of the things that they were looking at.
Yeah.
This Hao Lin from the Center for High Pressure Science and Technology Advanced Research in Beijing.
Yeah.
Some of these research centers that China has, I don't think are actual research centers. I think they're job titles that they have one or two people that have, and they like, look at us, we have a research center. Our research center is the Center for High Pressure Science and Technology Advanced Research.
You know, we could do the same thing.
Yeah.
CreepGeeks Research Center.
Well, we need to give it a more spiffy name. We need a name that will pay more money when you go to hand it in to somebody. Here, take my card. And they're like, oh, you just CreepGeeks, $2.
Okay.
But you hand in like, I don't know, Western North Carolina Research and Crypto Development Center. Ooh, how much would you pay then? $3. Right?
I'm glad you named the price because I wouldn't have been able to meet that
It's a carbon
price.
conundrum with this planet.
Oh, gosh.
Same thing when you print out a business card. You can be anybody you want.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, it's up to you to clarify. But if nobody asks you the question, do you really need to clarify? Don't volunteer information if you don't need to. It's just waste time, effort, and energy.
Do you know why I pulled you over?
That's right. Dude, yeah. He almost gave me a ticket. So that was funny.
Okay.
You didn't think it was funny. I thought it was
No, I
hilarious.
did not.
So I'm playing the odds. I got insurance. You know what I mean? I haven't done anything in a long, long, long time. I'm good. No tickets.
Oh,
do you know why I pulled you over, sir? Do you know why you pulled me over? And come to find out, I didn't have a driver's license with me. And that's why he pulled me over. How we knew that? I don't know. He was fishing. But then when he asked for my license and I didn't have it.
Gosh.
So anyway, since Mercury has such a dark surface, and they're trying to develop an explanation as why is this planet so dark, because it has a high carbon content and stuff. So they used some data from NASA's Messenger probe, which orbited the planet between 2011 and 2015 to discover that it was covered in graphite.
Cool.
And I like how they explain it. The same gray stuff used as lead in pencils. So,
Great.
yeah. Well, the article is pretty smart sounding until you get to that part. So I'm thinking it copy and paste or something. Right? I don't know. The gray stuff used in pencils. Who was that for? Of course.
So,
anyway, so how graphite got there, that's what raises the question. So scientists believe that it must have been once molten, welling up from a magma ocean somewhere deep within Mercury's mantle.
Okay.
Which, it's going to be, and they explain this. So Mercury's mantle is a vast layer that lies beneath the crust and the core. So the more you read this, the more they think you're not smart. Right?
Yes.
So how deep the carbon source is, they don't know. It's not clear on how deep it is. So depending on the range of depth and factors like pressure and temperature and other carbon materials could have formed as well, like diamond. So they're just basing it off of, like, we got carbon, we got graphite. This probably came from the inside where the graphite was sort of pushed up from the magma core. And all that should have enough temperature and pressure to create diamonds. Or they're going to crack it open like some geodes, has nothing in there at all. Except crud and dirt water. And you're like, I paid $8 for this. So, because that's what happened when I got a geode. And you're like, it's going to be great. You love it. You know what was in there? Dirt and mud water. So effectively, I broke open a dirt clod, right? That's all right. So anyway, they've simulated the conditions of Mercury's interior using an anvil press. And they explain it to machine applied pressure, right? And the level of that pressure was up to 7 gigapascals, which just sounds impressive, right? So that's 7 times the pressure found at the bottom of the Marianas Trench. So my thing is, when they pulled down on the handle of this thing to apply this 7 gigapascals of energy, did the Earth move a little bit? You pull down, did the Earth go down a little bit? So it's like if you jump in an elevator, as it's going to hit. So anyway, from their research, and they checked it out and used some other things, like a sulfur dilution and all of that. Anyway, the conditions, it turns out, are perfect for forming diamonds. And the researchers suggested these diamonds formed in the magma ocean, and then they gradually sunk down and deposited at the core mantle boundary. And that's what's forming this bejeweled layer around 300 miles beneath the surface. So they're doing that, and they basically base that off of, that's how they come up with the estimation it might be 11 miles thick. And it could also explain why Mercury's magnetic field is so powerful for its size. Because diamond evidently is very good at conducting heat, and it can cause drastic temperature differences in the interior, and it could turn the liquid mercury in the core. And if you spin it fast enough, you get a magnetic field. Which is funny because that's what they say flies UFOs.
Yeah.
Spinning mercury creates its own magnetic field. Did you know that? Yeah, one of the ideas of UFO propulsion is you take, and this goes even back to like Indian legend. When they talk about, like we talked about the bridge and everything was built by Kama thousands of years ago, whatever, or a million years ago.
Yeah.
The idea is that if you take mercury and you spin it, you have to heat it, of course, and then you spin it, it'll create a magnetic field, and that magnetic field will be strong enough to be able to counteract Earth's magnetic field, and from there it's propulsion, and you can change certain variables and factors to move, to levitate, if you will. Which is easier, spinning a bunch of mercury in a centrifuge type thing and heating it, or using like liquid nitrogen and some other type of material to levitate that way. It's the mercury. And there's a name for those spacecraft, those alien flying saucer spacecraft. So it starts with a V. It's like Vishnus or something like that. But I thought that was pretty interesting, actually. So that's part of the reason why I stuck it in here.
All right.
So there you go. Mercury has 11-mile thick diamonds using the same technology that propulsulates alien crafts. I have my phone set on airplane mode, and I'm still getting a bunch of just stupid stuff coming through.
Yep.
So I don't know why. It's angering me. Because evidently my settings don't matter, according to Apple. I'm listening to everything these guys do. I see it. So, Apple are jerks. Microsoft's jerks. Cloudflare is jerks. Their software update took out a whole bunch of stuff, created billions of dollars worth of damages. And you know what they did?
What?
This is sort of a tech thing. It's a tech aside of the CreepGeeks podcast. They sent out coupons for free pizza.
They
through
did?
DoorDash and Uber Eats. Yeah.
Oh,
they took down just tons of stuff, caused billions of dollars worth of issues with a goofball software update. Yeah. But here's a pizza party. That's the same thing companies and corporations do when they don't want to give you more money as in a raise. They're like, hey, guys, Friday, for all your good hard work, and you make us extra money. It's like, a ton of money. Pizza party.
But
it's like, wow.
To really dig the nail in, that was actually in response because there was thousands of tweets of people who were physically unable to open their smart fridges because of it. You're sitting there hungry.
Well, there's one of the garbage, I shouldn't say this, one of the airlines that's not known for being very good or modern, they were just fine. They didn't have to cancel flights or anything. You know why? They were rocking Windows 3.1. 3.1. How cheap do you got to be to your equipment?
Yeah.
Is Windows 3.1. That's crazy to me. They're not even Windows 95.
Well, there was all those news announcements of those various companies, anything from like one of the largest storage locker companies to one of an American railway line actually used like Windows 3.1 and Windows NT.
Well, 3.1 I can see for some of the mechanical stuff.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have to be too terribly smart. Windows NT is an excellent operating system.
Wonderful operating system.
So was Windows 2000. That was excellent. I love those operating systems because it was. But there's a whole group of people that may or may not be listening to podcasts have no idea what we're talking about. Like 3.1. Like, I remember loading up Windows 3.1, being happy with it. It's like, wow. Because you got rid of all that boring, like, let me type a whole bunch to make stuff happen. Got little pictures.
Yeah.
Drag and drop, set your little hot folder. So whatever thing you threw in that hot folder did a task. I thought that was amazing. Then they took it away. And they're like, oh, well, no, you can still do it if you want to jump into the command line and type a whole bunch. So just being able to right-click hot folder and do this. Those were the good old days, back when life was simple. It was.
Okay.
Think about it, simpler. And now you got the trend for people like just to buy dumb phones. So I don't call anybody. We use text and stuff like that. So I'd have a dumb phone. It'd be like wearing a pager.
Well, it's like, okay, we've gone back and remember like the iPod touches? That's pretty much what I use my phone for.
Yes.
Listen to music, look at stuff, maybe open one
See,
or two
I never had
apps.
an iPod Touch. I had an iPod Nano that was given by the company.
Yeah.
Which I found and resurrected
Yeah.
and put like 700 songs on there just here recently.
iPod.
Yeah, but my kids had more expensive iPods.
Yeah.
I actually got a really good deal on one of the old school iPod 30 gig classics that when they were out were like $500.
Yeah.
A guy from working at Apple called, had a problem with his camera. I fixed his camera and he's like, "So what are you getting for Christmas?" I'm like, I'm gonna get my daughter an iPod.
Yeah.
He said, "Which one?" I was like, "Well, they're all pretty expensive." And he was like, "Use my coupon or use my code, whatever it was." And he goes, "I'll send it to you. Use my code and you'll get 40% off." I was like, "That's a lot." And he's like, "Yeah." And he says, "But it gets even better. If you can find a refurbished one, you can use the same code and it's still 40% off." And I believe that's back when Apple had like good incentives to work at Apple.
Yeah.
So I looked because he sent the code, came in via email. I looked, found one refurbished, hit the 40% off code, and wound up paying like $117 for almost a $500 iPod at the time. It was like $396 or whatever it was. And that thing lasted like, I don't know, I don't know where it went. I wound up coming back with a battery wouldn't charge, and then the little hard drive it's in it was actually a spinning hard disk. Wound up going bad. I should have kept it because people are resurrecting these things now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you're using an iPod Touch. I'm using a Nano. I'm actively looking for another iPod so that I can own my own media.
Yeah.
So whether you're 20 or 70 years old, if you're relying on the cloud, if they get mad, change their terms of service, go out of business, you will lose your media.
I'm trying to figure out how to do that for books I read. So, because
Make them PDFs. You can stand in here and illegally scan them with your phone. Right? Each page, just like a peasant.
I'm so far into the Kindle system, like the Kindle environment.
Yeah. I think it's like biblio.org. There's companies where there's not companies, organizations where you can get free books to download via PDF, and they're free. You're allowed. It's either Biblio or Biblioteca. I have a couple of them saved. Actually, when we I can't remember where it was exactly. Found a PDF for all sorts of ancient rituals and stuff like that. That I put a link to the patrons on our Patreon so they could download it. It's like $3, but I don't know where I got that from. I got that from one of the patrons, actually. Our patrons on Patreon sent it to us. I don't remember because we're going back just like a year ago. But anyway, going back on the podcast.
Yeah.
In our new, as of this episode, dystopian news feature, we are this close. And I'm making a little tiny gap between my fingers, right? This close to having our own drinkable urine suit.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to that.
That's right. And we're going to need this when we go mining Mercury diamonds.
We're not going Mercury.
You got to be able to drink our own pee because when you're out in space, right?
Yes.
Two things. No one can hear you pee, and where's all that water and stuff coming from? It does, you got to do good. Plus, we watched Dune today, or parts of Dune.
Yeah.
And they have a still suit. So when you wonder, like, oh, yeah, it's just taking moisture out of their breath and all that stuff, and their pee. So they're drinking their own urine. So a real-life Dune suit, or what they call a still suit, can turn urine into drinkable water. And this is from Unexplained Mysteries. I guess the mystery is, why would you want to drink your own pee? But it's not that uncommon because we watched Bear Grylls do it a couple times on TV, drinking his own urine, right? Yeah. Filtered through a tube sock or whatever it was. And he's like, see, it's great. I'm like, no, it's not. That's because people used to think that urine was sterile, right? Like this even during World War II. So if you had like burns, they would wrap it in gauze and use urine to keep the wound sterile. And jellyfish, stings, can pee on it, and the uric acid helps neutralize the sting. Now, we used to carry meat tenderizer to get rid of jellyfish stings. You can also use vinegar, or in a pinch, you can just, use pee, just in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
And call this the PP podcast. So scientists have developed a new type of spacesuit that can turn astronauts' urine into clean, drinkable water. So that's pretty cool. So the urine gets passed through a filtration system, which turns it into drinkable water within minutes. I hope they have some sort of indicator to let you know that water is safe to drink, like some kind of bell, maybe a little pop-up on your screen. You don't want to drink it too soon.
Oh, God.
Did you know how we have our little water filter pitcher thing that I have to keep filling up all because we drink so much water, fill it up all the time?
Yeah.
And if you do it when it's not done.
I'm sure it has a monitoring system.
Hey, cutbacks.
Oh, gosh.
So, yeah, it's been designed by the researchers at Cornell University. And the suit is made from multiple layers of flexible fabric, and it uses specifically designed collection mechanisms lined with polyester microfiber, and the urine is passed through a filtration system, which turns into drinkable water. They say, although the system adds a little bit of extra weight, it would enable an astronaut to spend much longer outside during particularly lengthy spacewalks. So they're saying, you know what? Well, I guess before you had to hold it, or you didn't have to hold it, but you had to figure out what to do with it when you were done. Now you can just, whiz through space, literally. You ready? You see what I did there? Whiz through space. All right. So, I mean, that's kind of cool. In all actuality, that is pretty cool because you could probably make a sustainable suit if you can get one that will do a better job filtering and scrubbing oxygen and carbon dioxide and all that, and P2. You could probably last long enough. What's that short story where the guy's in an astronaut suit? I mean, the suit has its own automation system. And the automation is that when they crashed or whatever on the planet, he had to get to an outpost. So the suit took over. And the suit uses the body as the energy source. So it was doing things like, as he was trekking across, the suit, ate a piece of the leg to create the energy, and he just kept doing it by the time it got the astronaut or whatever he is, space explorer, got to where he needed to be. He wasn't even a pair of eyeballs. So it was just the suit. And he goes through and sort of takes step by step what it was doing to him. And I don't know if that came out before a Doctor Who episode of kind of the same thing with David Tennant or after. But you've read it, right? It's a little short story thing. It's pretty disturbing.
And it got turned into a short
Dystopian
film at one point.
Yeah, it was even a cartoon. I think I may have seen it on Dust. Or YouTube on the Dust channel. All right, moving back into dystopian news. Let's not trust robots. Don't trust robots.
Stop it.
I'm creating T-shirts that say, don't trust robots.
I'm now following
Don'tTrustRobots.com.
a college student on TikTok who...
Let me see if that's available.
...has been teaching a robot how to dance in dance competitions with her.
She just needs a friend.
She has friends.
Like real friends.
She has real friends. In fact,
not internet friends.
Some of her real friends have actually tried to teach the robot ballet. So...
Because that's useful.
It is.
That's weird. It redirects to a Unix production motion page. It's just what the robots want you to think.
That's what you get.
Yeah, I'm getting a little sweaty now. This is getting real.
Thinking you're being clever, buying up a domain, and they just lured you in.
You will look at UI animation in 3D illustration.
Anyways, this is probably...
And the illustration's spelled wrong. It's weird. Maybe this is some sort of like...
So going to steal all your info.
Already got it.
Yeah, well, despite what I think, you're going to proceed with this anti-robot article. So...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's happened is there's a dog-like robot that can jam home networks and disable devices during police raids.
Huh.
Yeah. So DHS, this Department of Homeland Security, develops a Neo robot for walking denial of service attacks.
That's kind of annoying.
Yeah, guess what?
What?
It's not just me just putting gibberish up. This is from Tom's Hardware, which is, in my mind, pretty reputable, man. Because I bought many things based off Tom's Hardware's recommendations. So what happens is smart home defense crumble when the Neo dog arrives. So the Department of Homeland Security has announced that it's developed a four-legged robot designed to jam the wireless transmission of smart home devices. Right? If your phone's connected to the smart home network, guess what? Jammed.
Yeah.
Internet, jammed. Phone, jammed. Home security cameras, jammed. Temperature sensors, jammed. Outside security cameras, jammed. Everything gets jammed. If you did that, you would go to jail.
Yeah.
Cell phone jammer, you would go to jail. CB jammer, go to jail.
And that's so annoying because it's like, this isn't the robot. I think this is a misuse of capacity.
The robot is going to do what the robot is told to do. And the robot doesn't care. It doesn't care. There's no trust involved with the robot. Robot doesn't know anything, right? It's like there's no loyalty with your insurance company. No loyalty with robots. So the robot was revealed at the 2024 Border Security Expo, and it's called Neo. It's built using a quadruped unmanned ground vehicle, UGV, and looks a lot like Boston Dynamics' Spot robot. Probably came from Temu or AliExpress. And so this thing is a walking denial of service. So you're doing your own thing. If they want to raid your house or do whatever, they can just send the robot walking by, and it knocks out all your stuff.
That really does annoy me.
Yeah, and you're like, what's going on? Next thing you know, you got the DHS guys kicking your door in, probably shooting some stuff up. And what? Oh, sorry, guys, we got the wrong address. I don't trust a lot of these organizations because we see stupid articles. We used to talk all the time about cops pulling people over and throwing them in jail because they seen what they thought was drugs. And a couple times it turned out to be the
Krispy
powdered
Kreme
sugar
frosting
off donuts.
Yes.
And you think police would be able to recognize that.
Yeah.
Because cops really do like donuts. It's not just a thing you make to make fun of cops. They do. And you know why? They're readily available and they're always delicious.
I wish we had donuts.
Exactly.
Good
exactly.
Donut place here.
And I admire policemen who can stay away from donuts because I'd be 700 pounds being a night cop somewhere. Because, I mean, all they got to do is stop by and get a cup of coffee from a Dunkin' Donuts or Krispy Kreme or any other donut place.
Yeah.
And they're going to give them a donut. I used to give away pounds of shrimp to cops.
Yeah.
Pounds of steamed shrimp. They cost a restaurant $15 a pound back in the 80s because they were good shrimp.
Yeah.
And it worked out in my benefit. I got pulled over a couple times, and guess what? Cops like, I remember you. They just wanted a soda. Got them a pound of shrimp. They let me go. So what do you think about that? That's how bad things could be. Now imagine this walking denial of service robot. Mm-hmm. Cruising by your house, knocks all your stuff out. And like I said, they kick the door up. What if somebody gets swatted?
Yeah.
Because if DHA has got it, I mean, DHS has it, Department of Homeland Security, other organizations are going to get it too.
Yeah.
Like I can see the LA Police Department getting it. And other government or non-government or local municipal government type organizations just buying a robot because it worked great. You're like, hey, check it out.
Yeah.
And so which means that some knucklehead's going to say, that's the address you guys need to go to. Because somebody called in and said there's, murder, death, kill going on.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there trying to play your video game or whatever, and this thing, they show up. And you're going to lose all your internet service. So you can't be online going, hey, guys, I think I'm being swatted. Help me out. No, there's no evidence. There's no record of anything.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if this thing could actually knock out cameras, like your little, Wi-Fi enabled cameras that everybody has. So you can't even record what's happening to you. And you know how many evidentiary proceedings have been dismissed when it came to, because, you were like, I would like the body cam footage.
Yeah.
Or I actually am recording this with my cell phone and this is what happened kind of footage. It's going to go away. And it's your word against police.
That's
and when the police make mistakes, because they do, they're not going to believe you. I used to really like the police. I still do. But at the same time, I don't trust them because they're made up of ignorant people just like you and me. Everybody's dumb, especially when there's a problem. You know what I mean? You could be a genius when you do something stupid. I told you. So I don't like it. So this thing can take out smart devices, right? And law enforcement can also use a robot to communicate with the subjects in the target area and provide remote eyes and ears to officers on the ground. So Neo can enter a potentially dangerous environment, provide video and audio feedback to the officers before entry. allow them to communicate with those in the environment. So there's a little crappy speaker on top of it. Hey,
Yeah.
you guys lay down your weapons. And you're like, what? So what happens when you shoot this thing? Because this robot kicks your door in, little dog robot, and starts yelling at you. I'd shoot it. Wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. So now you've shot this robot.
Yeah.
Now what's going to happen? All the cops are going to come in there shooting you. So about the only thing you can do is to make sure that you have like a megaphone so you can yell gibberish at them before they come in.
I'm still working.
You better hope you have a landline, because if you have a landline telephone,
That's what I was
you
thinking
could
about.
call the cops on the cops.
You know, landline, CCT, like CCTV. What can
Hardwired.
Yeah, hardwired. Bugging me now.
Yeah. So Neo carries an onboard computer and an antenna array that will allow officers in the area, right, the ability to create a denial of service attack event to disable Internet of Things devices that could potentially cause harm while entry is being made. So you're telling me that this robot's going to disable my network to protect the cops?
Yeah.
What, am I going to Wi-Fi them to death? This is the excuse that a lot of government organizations use.
Yeah.
It's for our own safety. It's for officer safety. It's for agent safety. None of it is for victim safety, perpetrator safety, criminal safety, right? It should, that should go both ways. I mean, you can scroll for hours on the internet with police doing unpoliceman things and doing things like Constitution. I've never heard of that. Because they don't, I mean, there is no requirement for them to tell you the truth. It's not. They've taken that away. Same thing with media. It's crazy, man. It's like, what world are we living in? What dystopian world makes me want to pack up my still suit, drink my own urine while I'm mining Mercury diamonds, right? So let's move into some more pleasant stuff, some cryptid type stuff.
Fantastic.
And we're going to give 10 most famous cryptids in the world according to the British.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
I don't trust them.
So here's the 10 most famous cryptids in the world, because honestly, in America, we kind of only really care about American cryptids and some Canadian cryptids and maybe one or two South American cryptids. Like a chupacabra, champ, I think, up in Canada. Is it called champ?
Wendigo, because it's a First Peoples.
Wendigo, First Nations people thing.
Yeah.
So number 10 is Mokele-Mbembe.
I remember a movie about this. Yeah.
It's like Congo River Basin in Africa. It's often described as a living dinosaur, similar to a sauropod. Yet in this AI-generated thing here, they show a brontosaurus. They clearly have never seen Littlefoot. That was a terrible movie, man.
Land Before Time.
Yeah, it was very heartbreaking. It was sad. So was Fern Gully. All these awful movies and people dying.
Fievel, that was like when he came to America.
Yeah, but he got better. He later got a job cooking.
Stop.
And became Ratatouille.
That's not true.
He went to America.
That's two different ethnicities. That's not true. Fievel was like Russian or something. So.
I thought he was Hungarian.
Maybe.
I don't know. Anyway,
yes.
But Littlefoot, sad.
The little
Man
toaster
Before
that
Time,
could.
sad. Fox and the Hound,
do you remember
sad.
the little toaster?
Yeah, that was.
That was.
You remember Up?
I can't even watch it.
Yeah.
All right.
The secret to Up is they were both dead.
Stop.
It's like, what?
I already heard one disturbing theory about Up, and I'm not.
You could make up your own disturbing. Just go to Reddit. There's
I
all sorts
did.
of
I went on Reddit and I read this one thing, and it just changed the whole movie for me.
Yes.
So.
Thunderbird.
Yep.
Did you read it? What did they say in lead-based paint? Was that a theory you read?
No.
There's another theory that the reason why they couldn't have children was when they did all the renovations and stuff. It just because they were always covered in paint when they're painting all happy and stuff was lead-based paint.
No, this one involved basically the scout kid. Yeah.
He's an angel getting his wings.
No, but he was in elder care.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So.
And there was another one that basically the dog.
Yeah.
Tastes like chicken.
No, that's not what.
Speaking of chicken, Thunderbird. Thunderbird's a good one. I like the Thunderbird.
Yeah. Because
to me, I think the Thunderbird is an easy to have cryptid. It's a big ass bird. Mm-hmm. We got those.
Yes.
So I can't have one just as big. And I'm talking about the bird. I'm not talking about like a flying pterodactyl. Right. Number 8's the Kraken, giant squid.
This is another possibility.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a giant octopus or squid capable of dragging entire ships to the ocean depths.
It's funny how the two most likely cryptids to exist are ones that, aren't terrestrial.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, think about it. If you're a sailor out on the ocean and you've seen a giant squid, by the time you get to shore, that squid has grown in size 10 times.
yeah.
So, number 7 is bunny yip. It's an aquatic cryptid, right, from Australia, Aboriginal mythology.
Yeah.
Descriptions vary, but it's often depicted as a large creature with a dog-like face, flippers, and a horse-like tail. To me, it almost sounds like a giant platypus.
Huh.
It's said to inhabit swamps, billabongs, and riverbeds, and stories of the creature have been passed down through generations, and it remains a significant part of Aboriginal culture.
6, of course, is the Jersey Devil, which, okay. The Jersey Devil, in my opinion, is more supernatural than cryptid. But it's it's that legendary creature said to inhabit the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. Has the head of a horse, wings like a bat, and hooves. The original story dates back to the 18th century, involving a local woman, Mother Leeds, cursed her 13th child to be born as a devil. So since then, there's been numerous sightings and reports of eerie screeches echoing through the forests and strange happenings.
Yep.
So,
back in the colonist days.
yeah.
Excuse me. Number 5 is Yeti.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, Mothman.
Yeah.
Number 3, Chupacabra.
Yeah.
Number 2, Loch Ness Monster. And guess what number 1 is?
Of course.
Bigfoots. Also known as Sasquatch.
Yeah.
Right. That's when they say EVPs, also known as electronic voice phenomena. It's like, come on, everybody knows that, right? So Bigfoot is one of the most famous cryptids in North America. I would say from just in general, it is the most famous cryptid in North America.
Yeah.
Period. Everybody knows about Bigfoot.
Yeah.
You know, large, hairy, like blah, 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 blah. So anyway, around the world, according to the British, those are the most famous. And I would agree with most of those. I think that they're probably missing on somewhere. But those are the major ones, Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Jersey Devil, Mothman.
There's a couple in
Yeti. We have patches for all those, but we don't have patches for things like bunny yip and the Kraken.
And there's so many more in Southeast Asia that are more well known than bunyip.
Well, I mean, little people are known all over the world. There's instances of little people in culture, so why not have a little person?
But is that cryptozoology or is that just paranormal? Or supernatural.
It's hard to say because it depends which version of little people you're looking at.
See, that's like I don't
are
think
elves? Are they cryptids?
See,
what about troll? Is a troll a cryptid?
If it's humanoid, I think that's more supernatural.
So you're telling me if it's pretty, it's supernatural, and if it's not
always because
it's cryptid.
Well, okay, so
what kind of discrimination term do we use for that? Oh, it's a pretty elf. Oh yeah, supernatural.
No,
it's a troll. Cryptid.
No, humanoid. Okay.
Bigfoot.
No.
Bigfoot's humanoid.
Ape-like.
2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 nose, and a mouth. 10 fingers, 10 toes. What's up?
Okay, the things about elves. They wear clothing. They conjure magic.
If you listen to Mysterious Universe, they have told us over the years many instances of Bigfoot stealing people's clothes and trying to wear them. Like running around all crazy.
You can do the same thing at the zoo. You throw a hat in the gorilla tank and they play with it.
Well, according to your own definition, then they would be supernatural. That's what she said.
Okay, we're gonna make some Bigfoot people mad right now. And
I don't. What are they gonna do?
Mad. Bigfoot doesn't conjure magic like elves and no.
According to the natives, yes, they do. They have their own language.
Okay.
Now, if you go based off of Bigfoot as a ghost,
which we're not,
then hey, there you go. But see, now if you take it even more scientifically speaking, if ghosts aren't actually ghosts but are shades from parallel dimensions or whatever, then, which would explain everything, honestly, then sure, it all works. Yep.
Nope.
So anyway, speaking of Bigfoot, because we got two more things to talk about, there evidently is a brand new forthcoming video game that challenges players to live the life of Bigfoot.
Why?
I'm not a gamer. I don't know. So I don't know what to tell you. But it's supposed to be interesting, right? It's called Bigfoot Life.
Oh, gosh.
And it's an innovative new video game that puts players in the proverbial shoes of Sasquatch by challenging them to basically live as the elusive cryptid. It's a simulator, and it's, like I said, titled Bigfoot Life. It's the brainchild of Planet 47 Games, which announced the project on Wednesday. And this is recent. And there's a trailer on YouTube. And the game is supposed to basically be released, or set to be released next year. And the game plants the player's virtual Sasquatch in a sizable forest where they must forage for food such as berries or mushrooms. Or if they're feeling particularly hungry, pluck fish from a river. So replace Bigfoot with bear, and you can make nature people happy.
Okay.
If you replace Bigfoot with an elf, you can make paranormal people happy. Right? If you basically replace the elf with a regular person, then as long as they don't die of dysentery, you can make like
Well, see, that's part
pioneer
of this.
frontier people
The
happy.
faux Sasquatch must also figure out how to survive when winter comes and, of course, contend with the cryptid's greatest threat, humans. To that end, players can acquire points by snatching items from unsuspecting campers.
Like clothes.
Shut up. However, they must also avoid encountering any Bigfoot hunters who roam the forest hot on their trail in the hopes of snapping a picture of the elusive creature.
So we know how the Bigfoot community can be. Mm-hmm. And they are going to be just incensed with some of the things that you'll be able to do in this game. And we'll just be like, I've drafted off a fiery email. Because there's no way that Bigfoot would do that, because he would do this. And it's like, again, a lot of the stuff that people think up and how Bigfoot interacts or whatever, if it's real or not, is just pretty interesting. But you can also kind of undo the entire thing by saying, prove it, man. How do you know Bigfoot eats turtles?
Huh.
Well, if I was Bigfoot, but you're not Bigfoot. I wouldn't eat a nasty old turtle if I could help it. Which would you rather eat, a deer or a turtle?
Deer.
Absolutely. Which would you rather eat, a deer or a rabbit? I would need at least 4 rabbits for some shoes, like little moccasin shoes, and maybe some gloves.
Yeah.
Rabbit's probably pretty tasty. I can buy rabbit from the grocery store.
Yeah.
Can you buy deer from a grocery store?
Some.
I bet
It's a
it's
new
expensive.
movement. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want deer. I want reindeer, grass-fed. I mean, you can buy reindeer in Norway. I mean, you can go to McDonald's and get a reindeer burger if you want. I did. Thought it was a bad hamburger. I'm like, why did this cost so much money? There was 2 reasons. The kroner wasn't doing very well. Actually, no. Other way around. The dollar wasn't doing very well. The kroner was doing really good. So, I mean, that's kind of interesting. But there will be, I'm sure, it's going to pop up somewhere. Somebody's going to be incensed. I am a professional Bigfoot hunter, and Bigfoot do not do this. You need to fix your game immediately. I'm a professional Bigfoot hunter, and that movie, Harry and the Hendersons, is complete false. It's falsehood, right? It's a falsity.
You know, I'm also thinking
Bigfoot's not nice.
like there's that joke on the internet, like yet again an unrealistic beauty standard for women, and then this video game's going to teach you, and it's like yet again another unrealistic cryptid standard.
Yes.
You know, like
I seen one where I was popping through Reddit, and I don't, scrolling for something, and they have like rate my look or outfit or something, like rate my outfit or whatever. And one of them was like, how do I fix this? And this girl got microbladed eyebrows, which I still don't fully understand. Yeah. And her thing was, are they too thick? And they had a before and after picture, and I couldn't see the difference at all. I'm like, well, what am I looking at? And I thought it was one of those things where they post the same picture twice and then say, hey, guess what's wrong with this picture? And you never will, because there's nothing wrong with it. Or find these 15 things, and there's not 15 things. It's the same picture. And you're like, all right, whatever.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to be a part of that. So, but yeah, evidently it's big, and people were like, oh my God. And rate my outfit. Is this good for work? And it's like, okay, no, obviously it's not good for work. And it was under the CreepGeeks Reddit thing. I'm like, because we don't post anything with it. And so it just fills in stuff it thinks you want. It's like, I I want Bigfoot stuff, but there's like one or two good Reddit threads on Bigfoot, or Reddit subgroups. Okay, so anyway, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the podcast with this last thing as soon as I can find it. It's basically another list. It's for UFO stuff this time, and this map reveals the 8 UFO hotspots.
Yeah.
And it's not a complete map by any means, but it's like, is your country on the list? And it also kind of has a little graphic that you don't even have to read the article. You can just kind of look at the picture and see, I should say, the number of reports of UFOs.
Huh.
But it's the unidentified flying objects that we're looking for here, right?
Yeah.
And according to the National UFO Reporting Center, it says NUFORC, which I didn't know that was their acronym, and it has a data bank of revealing information for what they consider to be the most credible or interesting cases. And I put this in the podcast because when you seen a UFO, you reported it when we were in New Mexico to NUFORC and MUFON.
Yep.
And MUFON got back to you, and NUFORC did not.
Yep.
So I thought this is 7-8 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So these are the countries, the big countries, big enough. Guess how many Australia has?
That surprised me. 961.
I thought it'd be more for some reason.
I did too.
Especially with Pinewood being there.
Yeah.
India.
I expected that to be higher.
Yeah, I expect that to be like crazy.
Yeah.
It's like 592.
502.
502. South America.
That.
I was thinking that would be a much, much higher thing. But
maybe
then again,
they're not counting Central America. Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
Because it's just South America. I bet if
actually, I'm looking at the wrong thing. I mean South Africa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. South America should be really high. But see,
if
you look where South America would be, the number doesn't make sense. They're looking at like, Brazil is only having like 153. Isn't Mexico part of?
No, Mexico is a part of North America because it's considered Central America.
So I guess once you get past,
so we got all
Panama
of Mexico's numbers.
Yeah, because the USA, it basically says, what does that say? 100.
USA has 133,682. That's a lot.
I thought there would be more. We have a bunch of dummies that report seeing Starlink as UFOs.
In fact,
did they call in 25? I've seen 25 UFOs.
I think it was about 4 episodes ago. I said we were going to start talking about a new UFO app. I think maybe in the next couple episodes we'll talk about it. And I'll read some of the reports. So,
yeah, I guess it is.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's, I don't know, 100,000 more than any other, than that. 130,000 more than any other country in this little list so far. Ireland, 189.
Yeah.
The UK, what is that, 3,000 something?
3,439.
Canada.
5,973.
I thought that'd be higher too.
Maybe
you know what it is? Oh, I don't want to bother anybody. I'm too nice.
Population density. In fact, their badlands in Canada are way less populated than our badlands in the Southwest.
Well, Canada as a whole is way less populated. It's a huge country.
I strongly believe that a lot of UFO, UAP sightings happen in badlands areas. I bet they have a lot more they don't know about.
Oh, I'm sure. We have a ton of UFO sightings in Alaska. In some places, nobody would ever see them.
Yeah.
Because you can't get there to begin with,
Yeah.
So, the U.S. naturally is at the top of the list with 133,682. The state with the most UFOs is California with 16,399 credible cases since the 90s.
Yeah.
But I mean, are you really surprised? I just thought it would be higher. But maybe it's because we look at this stuff, so we just assume that everybody looks at it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess it sort of depends. All right. Well, anyway, I think we're going to go ahead and take a second to wrap up the podcast. This is CreepGeeks Podcast, Season 8, Episode 316. And we do appreciate you taking the time to listen.
Yeah. Be sure to follow us on social media, y'all. Our social media presence is growing. We are trying to engage more folks on what we talk about and get some input from you guys. The best place to do that is probably going to be either our Instagram or our TikTok or even the Facebook group. So go ahead, search for Creep Geeks Pod or Creep Geeks Podcast on whatever your favorite social media platform is, and you'll be able to find us.
Yes. So, all right. So anyway, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please let us know. We do appreciate you taking the time to listen. So anyway, see you later. Take it easy. Icicle.
Bye.